Hey everybody, and welcome to our final live of this month's theme. So we spent 5 weeks looking at the power of the subconscious mind. And what we're going to do is at the end of the fifth week, the end of every topic, we're going to get together with a couple of our coaches, two, three, four of our coaches, to do a live Q&A so you can ask any questions that you want about the network, about the community, about the power of the subconscious mind, about any of the challenges that we set this month, about any of the lives that we've had. This is your space to ask anything that you want from us. I'm joined today with Ishpreet. Everybody knows Ishpreet now, but I'll let Ishpreet say hello and I'll do a little bit of a welcome.
Hey everyone. Like Paul just mentioned, everyone knows me. I'm Mishpreet, and I feel like this month was it was a very nice one because everyone really contributed and learned a lot about the subconscious, and everyone had like different aspects and perspectives to it. Personally, I enjoyed it a lot and loved like contributing to it and listening about the different things. But this today is your chance. If there was anything that we missed on answering before, or you have any question with regards to subconscious mind, this is your chance. Go ahead and drop your questions in the comments, and we'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Ishpreet. That's fantastic. We've got Rosie Pasalza Praise tuned in. I don't know, I always get automatically read the names, and I know it's Priya. I automatically read the name, but hi Priya. It's great to see you here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Um, so just in terms of a bit of a recap then, just for anybody who might not have caught our previous sessions. So we've had 4 sessions previously on the power of the subconscious mind. We had Hannah open up with talking about the subconscious mind and she gave some facts behind how we start to develop our subconscious mind, especially from a young age. I think it was between the ages of 2 and 7 is when we consume the most or data or information into our subconscious mind. And also, she talked about how 95% of what we do is controlled by our subconscious mind too. She gives some great facts and she gives some great experiences of how she's used her subconscious mind and started to talk a bit about conscious and subconscious and which one was more powerful. I then jumped live myself and talked about how we can change the way we think, so we can think more positively and using the power of the subconscious mind and how we can work to train our positive mind. And then Ishpreet jumped live and you talked about how you can gain confidence through the subconscious mind. I don't know if you want to mention anything that you did on your live, just a quick recap on your live, Ishpreet. Any key points?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I spoke about how can you increase your confidence using your subconscious mind, and it's so like that particular live was about confidence, but in general, if I say, it's not just about confidence. Like, it can be applied to each and every aspect or each and everything that you can possibly think of when I say about and whatever I spoke about with regards to confidence. And like Paul just mentioned, about which is the more powerful one, the conscious and the subconscious. And it'd be great to hear from you guys as to what did you think before this month, as to what really controls your life. Because we saw through everyone, through every coach and every live session, that 90% of our life is controlled by our subconscious mind. Think of your subconscious mind as like a repository that has every single emotion, feeling, experience, and everything that you've been through ever since that you were a kid. It's stored in your subconscious mind. Even if you remember or you don't remember, it's still there. And that's the reason when sometimes we just don't have the answer to certain things as to why we are doing something, and it just like flows. It's like an instinct that we do something. It's mostly because of your subconscious, and it's like ingrained there, and it just like naturally flows. You might not have the answer to that particular thing in the moment, but that's the reason why. And it's super important to understand that that is all that there is. And what contributes to your subconscious is your belief system. If you can change your beliefs about certain things, you can possibly change the course of your life. And this is what I spoke about when it came to confidence, that we must first introspect and find out the root cause of where is the lack of confidence even coming from, and then get hold of it, and then take those beliefs, the existing beliefs, and then cross them out, and then replace them with more empowering beliefs, and take it from there, and like slowly, bit by bit, that's how you change your beliefs, interchange your beliefs with better ones, and ingrain them in your subconscious, and then that's how you like change the course of your life, if I say, like in a nutshell, possibly more than a nutshell that I think I went.
Cheers, thanks for that, Ishpreet. And then after Ishpreet's live, we had Prashani jump live last week and go deeper and take us on the journey of dreams and the subconscious. I'm going to hold my hands up. I still need to catch up on that. I've been out of kind of our lives for the past couple of days since Sunday, so I will catch up on that today, Prashani. But Ishpreet, I don't know if there's anything. Did you catch it? You managed to catch a session?
Sorry, Paul, I can't hear you properly.
No, did you manage to catch Prashani's session at all? Just to give some.
I did not get the chance, just like you.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So we'll catch up on Prashani's live and we'll feed some of that into the session. But one of the things I do want to bring into today's session is we see Prashani and Sam's joined. Hey, both. It's great to see you both here. What I want to bring in is for the benefit of anybody who didn't have a chance to do our cafe this month. One of the exercises that we brought in today was the model. You might have come across it in your own studies, in your own personal development, but the model of unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. And basically what that is about is the 4 stages we go through in terms of training our subconscious mind. And we kind of looked at and reflected on a quote from Bruce Lee. So one of the famous quotes from Bruce Lee is, "I fear not the man who's practiced 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times." So I'll say that again. I fear not the man that's practiced 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. And if you've looked at any of his work, when he talks about this, the point being is when we practice something over and over and over again, it embeds into our subconscious and it becomes automatic, and we start to master that. So in the session, we start to look at how we can start to master whatever it is we're trying to learn, whatever goal or hobby or anything we're trying to strive towards. And going through that model, we reflected. So for this today, we can have a little think of it. Also, this is a space for you to answer any questions as well. If you've got any questions you want to ask as we go through, we're just kind of filling in with a bit of content for you too. So basically, we start off being unconsciously incompetent. And basically, what this box means is that we don't know what it is we need in order to achieve, or we don't know how incompetent we are in order to achieve the hobby or the goal that we're trying to master. So in the book, we used in the pack, we used the example of learning to play the guitar. So in that first stage, you want to learn the guitar, you've got a guitar, but you don't know what you need in order to play the guitar. You don't know the chords, you don't know how to tune it, you don't know any songs, you don't know how to book it, you don't know where to place your fingers, you don't know any of that. Obviously I do, because I'm sharing that with you. But what I've shared there is in the next stage, which is when you become consciously incompetent. So you become aware of what you need to do. So everything I just mentioned in terms of that guitar there, you become aware of all that, but you just don't know how to practice it. You don't know how to play it. You can't play the guitar. So you're in that stage where you've got everything you need, you know what you need to do, but you're incompetent in being able to play it. So we got in the workshop, and it's something you can do. It's an easy exercise. You can download the cafe pack. It's in there. There's 4 boxes. And what we asked people to do was think about where they were on their skill, what box, and then how they can create an action plan to move into that next box. So think of, if anybody wants to share what it is they're trying to learn, share in the box below. But then from that consciously incompetent, we move into the consciously competent box. So that is where we've learned what we need to do and we start to become competent. We can play that guitar, but we have to think about it. We're playing it to a good level, but we have to think about it. We have to concentrate when we're playing, and we can play. So some of you might be in that box when you're learning your hobby or whatever it is you're trying to learn. And then you move into the fourth box, which is the unconsciously competent, which means you've mastered it. You can pick up that guitar and you can play it without even thinking about it. And probably the easiest example you can use, so I like to use the guitar because it's a bit different, but is driving. So I'm sure you can resonate with that in terms of driving and the four boxes you go through when you're learning to drive. Anybody else here, if you want to share an example of how you've gone through that journey or that process, feel free to share in the comments box below.
Yeah, Paul, I actually resonate with that a lot, even with regards to driving. I actually remember the first time that I tried and how it moved from one quadrant to another, and now it's like it just flows. It's something that you don't even need to think about. And that's the case with everything. Like for now, if I say I am learning Spanish, so it's like one after another, like you're saying, the flow. The first day when I started, it was just like all blah. Everything was right there in front of me, and I still was struggling in terms of like comprehending it and really absorbing it. And now I'm maybe in somewhere around the second quadrant, second or third quadrant, where it's like it's in the flow, it's coming in the flow slowly and steadily. So yeah, anyone else, if you guys are learning anything, if you're into something right now, feel free to share that with us, or if you've been through these quadrants before in the past as well, however it resonates with you.
It's interesting to hear that you're in that third stage of driving. The fourth for me, like I don't know if anybody else here, but I can get in a car and drive for hours and not even realize how I got from A to B. Just you don't even have to think about it. You know, if you're listening to a podcast or you listen to music or whatever, you subconsciously just do everything. And that's a way in which the reason why I put that in the cafe pack is that's a way in which you can start to train things into your subconscious mind. So you can, and being aware of those stages really helps you grow and develop it. As we've seen, our subconscious controls 90 to 95% of what we do. So it's important that we train it with positive stuff and the things that we want to train it with. Just going to go back to some of the comments. Ishpreet. Prashani says it was a cool activity, so they did it in the South Africa cafe. We did it in the Durham cafe in the UK as well, and it was really interesting because my grandma joined, and we actually took her through those four quadrants on how to use a mobile phone. And Karen Fowler, who joined us, she surprised us with an 8-hour drive. She was working with my grandma on helping how to use all this. It was really nice. And then we had Daniel, who took it a little bit deeper. Daniel Hinmarch was there, and he wants to understand sleepwalking and the subconscious mind and sleepwalking. So he went deep into those. How can he start to understand and learn more about and study sleepwalking and sleep? So it was really interesting to have a mix of different things what people were learning. So feel free to share what it is that you're learning and where you think you are on those quadrants. Sam says, I absolutely love that quote, add it to my quotes journal. It's one of my favorite quotes from Bruce Lee too. I've got a lot of quotes from Bruce Lee. He's one of my inspirations, so it's definitely a good quote. Frank and Paula are here. Great to see you both. I hope you arrived safely to your destination yesterday in the Smoky Mountains. I hope you're having an amazing time. Thank you so much for tuning in and being here when you're away on vacation. We really appreciate that. Paula says hello. Is there anything you want to add to the comments or anything, Ishpreet?
No, just want to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time and being here. And like we mentioned before as well, please drop down your questions below if you have any. Share your experiences with us. And yeah, we'd love to hear them.
Fantastic. Priya says, like Thomas Edison. What do you mean in terms of how it's like Thomas Edison, Priya? Love to know a bit more about what you're thinking there. Paul Adams, they've reached South Carolina. That's nice. Yeah, sorry, you said it was a bit of a surprise and you didn't know where you were going, which is fantastic. I hope you're enjoying it there. I hope it's lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Paula. So just in terms of a bit of discussion with Ishpreet and with everybody tuned in too, one of the things I want to bring into the space today is kind of briefly being touched upon in a couple of the live sessions, but not in a lot of detail. And I think it's so important when you start to think about the subconscious mind and to also look at this too. But the question I've got today is, how important do we think environment is when it comes to our subconscious mind? What role do we think environment plays?
For me, I think it has a massive, massive role to play. Um, because we pick on, when we talk about the subconscious mind, we pick so much information without even realizing it. um so what was that number? So I read somewhere that in just a second we process some 1 million bits of information or something like that. Like, it's not even exaggerating. That's the kind of information we consume. And when I say information, it's just like the things we see, the smell the fragrances we smell, or all these things that we don't realize we're consuming. And being in a space like that environment, the things you pick up from that environment straight away goes to your subconscious. And the things that you're feeling, the emotions that you're feeling being in that environment is everything to do with whatever you're doing at the present moment, how you respond, how you behave, how you come across, and all of those things. Like, for now, like right now, I am the biggest example of that. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to change, my environment. And that's why I moved here, where I could be like closer to nature. I could be closer to a place that now directly has a direct um, impact on my subconscious. In fact, even my screen time on phone has gone down. Like, every week we get this report on the phone, and I was just surprised to see that my screen time has gone down and my sleep cycle has improved. There's just like a lot of things that I didn't try on doing, but it's just happening because the environment is now changed, or I feel better without realizing it, and things like that. So yeah, environment has like a massive, massive effect on the way you're feeling.
Fantastic. I can definitely resonate with that, Preet, and I'll talk a little bit more about my experiences too and my thoughts. So you go to some of the comments. So Paula has said, I think it plays a huge role. I definitely agree with that. She says environment is key to being positive or negative. I agree with that as well, Paula. And everything that what Ishpreet was saying there, I think environment is one of the biggest factors for our growth. In terms of anything we look at in terms of personal development, we can talk about gratitude, positive affirmations. We can go deep on the power of the subconscious mind and how to train it. But actually, it might be difficult to train it in a negative environment. And I think environment is one of the key things to our subconscious mind. And I've done a lot of lives and talks on environment before, but I've never actually linked it to what we consume subconsciously. It's always about just changing, the environment to enhance your feelings. We always talk about nature. So some of the tips that I share is bring nature to your home. So have plants around your house. But if you're into nature, bring that in. It clears the air as well, so it keeps your air nice and clean in wherever it is you're living. And I also talk about kind of how to compartmentalize your areas as well, so you're not kind of eating, drinking, sleeping, watching, and relaxing in the same space, and you have different spaces for your work. But in terms of the power of subconscious mind, it's really got me thinking a lot about what we consume. And I'm trying to, I don't know what I'm doing here, if I'm trying to be consciously aware of my subconscious, which you can never do, because if you're conscious then you're not subconscious. But just being here in Colombia, so I'm trying to learn Spanish, and what I'm realizing is I'm learning so much just being around everything Spanish. Like, no one here speaks English, so it's all Spanish, everything Spanish. And I'm not consciously trying to learn every day. I'm trying at points, yeah. I have my little study sessions and stuff to learn, but the amount I'm taking in and consuming to learn Spanish is ridiculous. I've learned more Spanish in a week just being in that environment than I have sitting down for hours trying to learn it. So I really felt the benefit of the subconscious by just putting myself in an environment to learn that particular thing. And then this got me thinking, so I'm going to go pass this back to Ishpreet and to everybody. It got me thinking about, what we do here at the Coaching Minds community, and these discussions that we have and these talks that we have, and putting ourselves into that online environment, and how maybe that's helping us enhance our growth, and we're learning things quicker because we're surrounded by people who enjoy the topics that we talk about, who are inspired to learn, grow, and Is that, what we're creating here? Are we using our subconscious when we just tune in and listen to these sessions and these podcasts? I'd love to hear from you guys.
Absolutely. I think the biggest example here in the context that you're referring, Paul, is Priya's. Like when she spoke about the book club, and when she spoke about how she wasn't able to read a book, it had everything to do with the environment. When she was put in an environment where everyone did come together, and it was a change of energy, it was a change of space, and change of everything in that sense, that's when she was able to like grasp better and show a personal interest in the subject and things like that. So I think that's one example that we have in our own family. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, she shared that on the webinar yesterday, which is amazing. Thanks for bringing that up, Bishop. That's a really good point, and a really good example. So I'm just going to go back to the comments here. If there's anything you want, just tell me to stop, Bishop, if you want to comment or respond to anybody on the comments. So Paula says, yes, I get that ish. So she resonates with what you're saying. Someone says, I read an interesting article explaining Freud's view on the subconscious mind. Prashani also discussed this in her live. Yeah, I need to catch up on that. It'd be fantastic to have a look at that article and Freud's view on the subconscious mind. It'd be great to see what his thoughts are. Was that in terms of dreams as well? Was it linked to the dreams? I
It
know we've
was
had
it was linked to the subconscious minds and subconscious mind and dreams, like the effect of dreams.
fantastic, cool. Sometimes our subconscious mind is like an iceberg. It is solid like ice, but always on the move and working to try and burst through the surface. I love that thought, Sam. I really like the way you put that in your perspective. The subconscious mind is like an iceberg. It is solid like ice, but always on the move, working to try and burst through the surface. I like that. It's a good way of putting it. Sometimes, in a way, everything takes place beneath the surface. What do you mean by that, Sam? Just elaborate on a bit. What do you mean by beneath the surface? Paul says, my growth took off when my siblings shut me off. It actually was the best thing for me. And we're going to come on to that, Paula. It's a good point that you've raised there, because there's another quote that I want to bring in, the concept from Jim Rohn, or Jim Ron, however you pronounce it. But we'll come back to that in a second. But it's great to hear that your growth took off when your siblings shut you off. Paula says, I learned Spanish when we lived in Mexico City. That's fantastic. Yeah, I just want to give that as kind of a living example that I'm doing at the moment. And just being in that environment can really help you. Whatever it is you're trying to learn, it can really help. Priya says, I can definitely relate to that, Paul. Environment is vital. Thank you, Priya. So the other thing I want to bring in today in terms of our subconscious is a famous quote, you probably all heard it from Jim Rohn, who says, we are the average of the 5 people that we spend most of our time with. And, we've talked about this in previous sessions, the wisdom creators and some other live sessions, but I want to go a little bit deeper on this today in terms of the subconscious mind. So do we think that how does the subconscious mind link to that quote? I don't send any leading thoughts into that, but how can we link subconscious mind to us being the average of the 5 people that we spend most of our time with?
I think for me, obviously makes total sense, like everyone else, but it's more because the more time you spend with someone, the more you start to see yourself in them. That's how I feel like when you have certain kind of people around you, the way they speak, the things that they do, the topics that they talk about, all of this is like you consuming that information, you feeling those emotions while you're having those conversations. Like if you are in a group of people who aren't going anywhere with their life, the conversation that happens there is going to make you feel a certain way. You're either going to like, I am in as well, or I'm not going anywhere with my life, or the things that I lack, or just everything that's wrong with your life, it's going to make you feel a certain way. And we all know that the way to get anything registered in your subconscious is through your feelings. The second that you feel something, it registers in your subconscious, and then it has to manifest. That feeling has to come and show in your outer reality. It will align people, circumstances, situations that will match that feeling. And that is exactly how like I see it through. um, on the contrary, when you are in a group of people or you are communicating with people who push you towards like better things in life, the conversations are going to be different, the way you're feeling about yourself is going to be different. It's going to be a lot more empowering, a lot more confidence in you when you are around them. And even this is the stuff that you consciously choose, but then there are a lot of things that you don't even want to take in, but you still do. For example, when you look at them, when you look at their routine throughout the day, when you know that how they spend time with the people around them or their family and the things that they do, you're just picking those things up subconsciously because you know about them. And slowly and steadily, you start to connect yourself with them. I always feel like the people that you surround yourself with speak a lot about the person that you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't have matched at a particular, frequency anyway, and like gotten together at the first place. So
Yeah. Definitely, I resonate with a lot of what you're saying there, Ishpreet. And it's definitely energy. It's consuming their energy and their ways of thinking, and you start to imitate their behaviors. Everything you've just mentioned there. And if you take it right back to the beginning, and we talked about how between ages of 2 and 7 is when we consume the most. I think it was ages of 2 and 7, and Hannah gave that fact, where we consume the most into our subconscious mind. The average, the five people that we spend most of our time with, and go back to Paula's point, when we're growing up, is generally our siblings and our parents, and maybe cousins or people who are close to the family. So it's difficult, but that's how we shape who we are at the start, but not naturally who we are. So when we start to develop, and I can speak from my own personal experiences with my family, it wasn't the best environment for me at times. And you pick up that energy, you pick up their behaviours, you pick up people's thought patterns, and you start to imitate their behaviour. And it's not until you have some kind of conscious awareness that you need to kind of remove yourself from that environment or take yourself away from that place that you can start develop and change. And I think it's such a powerful quote that we are the average of the five people we spend our time with. And that's not when I hear that quote, and I've heard this is mentioned a few times. It's not like you seek to try and find to hang about with these great powerful people, or inspirational people, and just people that really resonate with your values and your authenticity. And I think that's what you need to find when you start to understand your values. I don't want to go into deep into values again, but I believe values are a magnet. When you fully understand your values and you strip the values that you've picked, because I believe when we grow up, we kind of inherit our parents' values, or values that we think are good values from what we've seen, because we've not fully understood. But when we really get to the root of who we are, and we get our authentic values, and we know and we stand by our values, that's when we can start to attract the right people, and the people that we want to spend our time with. I don't know if that makes sense.
yeah, it does. Another funny example is when in relationships, how people often come out and say that, what, you both are starting to like sound alike, or like just the ways that you do things, you, without even realizing, you start to just pick up those things and start saying the same kind of things in the same kind of way, start doing the same kind of things. And that's again because you are surrounding yourself with that person for that longer time that you didn't try to do that, but then you do start to say the, like, use the words that they do, or pick up some peculiar habits that they have, and things like that. Yeah.
Definitely, and I'm glad you mentioned relationships, actually, because if you really start to look at this, and I've seen this with a few friends through life, is what happens is people, when they get into a relationship, can get into a bubble where actually they don't spend their time with five people, so they could, they cut off themselves from the friends. They're just two of them, and they come together. And if it's toxic, it can be really bad. And they kind of just, the only time they're really spending their time with is that person. So they're, whatever it is they're feeding off each other becomes a kind of, it feeds that energy. And I think if you're ever in that position, if you're in that toxic environment, in a toxic relationship where you're not seeing other people and you're only spending your time with this partner that you're with, then the first steps that you can take is just to start to spend time with other people, just to get yourself out of that bubble. But I think it's a really good point to know, because I think the people that we surround ourselves by, again, it's kind of, I call it the kind of mental environment. Is it mental, emotional environment? It's part of the environment. We talk about physical stuff, but yeah, I think it's really, really important that we surround ourselves by positive people. I'm going to go through a couple of comments, Ishpreet, just to see what's come through. So Priya has said that constant vibration will eventually attract us, or vice versa. So she's resonating with what you're saying there, Ishpreet. Priya's also said space holds energy, time holds memory. The more we indulge in that space, the more we become that. To become conscious of our behavior change and realize we need to change it. That's a really good point with Priya. A really good point. We do need to become conscious before we can change anything. And we need to have that desire to change as well. We talk about this a lot in coaching. Coaching is really powerful. What we're doing here is really powerful, but people need to want to make that change. People need to want to be here. You can never force change on anybody. It needs to be, something needs to happen in them. Something needs to they just need to have that moment of awareness before they can change anything. So it's a good point to mention that, Priya. San again is to elaborate. We believe that we are in control of what we think and do. When I say beneath the surface, a good example of this is walking. We don't constantly tell ourselves to walk. It is simply done. Sorry, yeah, I understand that now, Sam. I get what you mean. So we always think we're in control of what we're doing, but actually we're just automatically doing everything. Everything happens beneath the surface. Thank you for elaborating on that. Paula says, at 17, I thought there has to be more than just this, what I saw and what was done by each person. Thank you for sharing that, Paula. It's good that you saw that at the young age and that you needed that there's more than this, and you took that awareness to step outside of what you were going through in your environment. Franklin says, I don't remember the speaker that said this, but he said that his father always told him to be careful who you hang out with because stupid rubs off. I'm not too sure who said that. Can anyone help Frank out? That's the first time I've heard that, but I like that. I don't particularly like the word stupid. I think we kind of misconceive the word stupid. For me, I see stupid as a feeling, and it's not something physically we are. It's something we feel. But I really like that concept, Frank. Be careful your hand because stupid rubs off. It's an easy way of kind of simplifying that whatever we do, whoever we hang around with, we rub off. And we can be, it depends on who we are as a person. And I think it's a good topic. I don't want to go too much into it today, but, and I don't know Frank, do you mind me sharing something that was shared in the book club yesterday by Paula? I just want to know if it's safe to share in this space. But the way I'm going here is, be careful who I'm around with because we can be easily influenced. And what is it? What makes us influence? What makes us being able to stand? Where we adopted that behavior from? Some of us can stand by our values and not follow the crowd, but a lot of us can be sheep and just follow and go along with it because that energy of the people that are doing something is stronger. We can gravitate towards that energy because of the majority. I don't know if you want to share anything on that, Ishpreet, but Frank has said it's safe. So just one thing that was shared in the book club yesterday was how Frank had used the power of his will and stood by his values. And Paul also gave the example of her values, standing by her values and not following the crowd. So he went against his group of guys. His group of guys were going to a strip club, and it wasn't his. Doesn't resonate with him. It wasn't something that resonates with him. So he decided to go against all the boys. No, it's not for me, and he went off on his own way. And it's the other reason I want to bring that into is what is it that let's think about this. What is it that makes us stand by our values, and what makes us follow it? Does that come from a subconscious mind? Or does that come from a conscious mind?
I think it does. It does from a very strong belief system that if I do a certain something, this is what the consequence is going to be like. And that consequence could be in terms of someone else, or it could be just the way that you see yourself. Certain times we just need to be true and honest in our own eyes more than anyone else's. And that itself is a very strong belief system. Like, I can resonate with that because for me, this thing was not smoking. So I was surrounded by, and that too at an age of what, 20, 21. where this is like the peak age where people do indulge in these things. And I was in an environment where everyone was doing it. Like, not a single person around me was of the league who wouldn't be smoking, like standing right next to me. But my willpower said something else, and I was just extremely, extremely determined to not do that particular thing. And that is the reason why till date I did not give in to that. And I just didn't feel like, because my belief system from my subconscious tells me that smoking is something that I associate with, those, in I don't know if it's abroad as well, but in India they put like these awful looking pictures on the boxes of cigarettes. And that's what I've seen ever since, like, I was a kid. So that was ingrained in my mind. So I used to always associate smoking with that picture. And every time I used to just hear the word smoking, I used to think of that picture. Like, it used to just pop in my mind without even trying. So that, I feel that has a lot to do with your subconscious and the beliefs that you hold towards it. So like, even in Frank's case, not going to like a strip club or something has probably would have had a very strong belief system behind it. That if he did a certain something or he gave into a particular situation, that's what he would feel about the situation or himself. Or I'm not sure. Frank, we would love to hear from you what was behind that. But yeah, this was my little story. Totally resonate with that.
No, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we have those similar pictures on packets in the UK as well. Although you're not allowed to show packets or cigarettes in the UK on the counter, they've got to be locked behind a screen so that people don't see. Unless you're with someone who smokes, you're not going to start to see those pictures and ingrain it. But I can definitely resonate with what you're saying, and it's going to nicely come on to something else I want to mention in terms of just going on just for a bit of content, a bit of conversation, in terms of companies and whether companies are aware that the power of the subconscious, and they use that in their advertising. But we'll come back to that in a second, because again, that is the league have to put that on the packet. But let's go back to a couple of comments that have come through. Sam said, I learned that we are only ready for change when we stop blaming others and stop making excuses. And Sam, that's perfect. And we're going, the next month's theme really ties nicely into this. So we're looking at fixed and growth mindsets, and that blaming others and making excuses. It's really in that fixed mindset stage and how we move from being fixed to growth. So thank you for sharing that. But definitely, we need to stop making excuses. We need to take back that control that we have. It's understanding that we have the power of choice. We have the power of control. We can control everything, that even what we see on our phone, what we consume, our environment. I'm not saying it's easy, but we do have the power if we're willing to put in the work and the effort to really change our life and take ourselves out of that environment. We just got to stop blaming other people, like you said, stop making excuses and start taking some risks. And I just want to bring in the one of the 40 rules of love that Frank mentioned yesterday on the live. I see it in the comments, but it was kind of towards the end. But we're always scared to take a risk and for our lives to be turned upside down. And one of the 40 rules of love that was brought in is, how do we know that the other side that our life is being turned to is worse or better than the side that it's currently on? It was something like that, but it was definitely profound. So definitely need to take those risks to make change. Sam has also said, I think there are 7 questions you have to ask yourself before making a change. That's interesting. It'd be interesting to know what those 7 questions are, Sam. And if we can maybe simplify that into 1 or 2 questions that we can ask ourselves before we make a change. It'd be good to know. Sam also says, I totally agree, Paul. The fear of rejection can be daunting. It can. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. And we generally act out of fear. And when we act out of fear, again, are we acting out of our subconscious there, or are we just acting? Where does fear play into it? It's another good question.
I feel like that has a lot to do with the labels we associate ourselves with. I think this was another point that I discussed in my life. That certain times the fear comes from a place of not even having tried something in your life. I mean, that's what terrifies you the most, because subconsciously you just feel that it's gonna feel very fearful or it's gonna be too scary to do a particular something, but in reality you have never even done that. It's just that in your environment, the way that people respond to that particular thing or that particular situation has led you to believe that even you are going to be scared of that. I think a lot of times that happens with us, that just because someone else feels a certain something about a particular situation, and we see that, and we've grown up seeing that, we also grow up to be scared of that particular thing. And what would happen if you would just keep those ideas at the back of your mind and just like go for it? You probably won't be even scared of doing it, but you can only know that after you've really jumped into the pit and like really put yourself out there and experience it for yourself. But again, it has everything to do with subconscious and whatever stored in there.
And there's a theory. I think it was Carl Jung, and correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody who's tuned in, who also talks about how we've actually, in terms of our subconscious, we've inherited stuff from ancestors, and it can stretch so far back. And one of the things I've read that it can link to is the kind of the fear of spiders and how we react to spiders and stuff. Is that's kind of a innate instinct from back in when we used to live in the kind of jungle and stuff. There's definitely psychological theory behind that, in terms of why we feel that fight or flight response when we see spiders. And where does that fear adopt from? Is it, does it come from? So if you're scared of insects and spiders, is it because your parents were scared of insects and spiders, or was it because, what is it? I don't know. The reason why I'm using spiders is because it's one of Ishpreet's favorite.
Yeah. It can make me jump down a mountain if I have to. Like, I think that's my biggest fear sometimes I feel. But anyway, it comes down to all insects. Like, I am equally disgusted by all of them. And I don't think, for me, when I think about it, like, you've just asked this question and it's making me think that why was I ever scared? For me, it just doesn't ring any bells apart from the fact that it just looked gross. I mean, for me, it was just that. I don't think it was from my ancestors, or even if it was, I don't know. But it just looks very creepy, and that's why I was scared. But if it's something else, I don't think there's any way to find out either.
Yeah, it's just interesting to think about, and where that comes from our subconscious. Because when you consciously become aware of it, they're not harm to you. Some, I know in some countries you've got to be aware of some spiders, but generally the majority of them are not harm to you. None of them really carry venom that's going to kill you, and they're small compared to you. You're bigger than them, and they're probably more scared of us than we are them. So. But still, even when you become that consciously aware, I see you're shaking your eyes and you're rolling your eyes and shaking your head because you're consciously aware of that, but you still got that fear. So where does that come from? Just come back to the comments here. So Priya says, "Woohoo for next month's theme, just does Ish line." I believe that Ish stole that from Homer Simpson on The Simpsons. The woohoo. I'm sure he caught it first. Sam says it was Young. Yes, thank you, Sam. Was it you that was having a discussion on this about? I remember talking. I think it was you, yeah, because you mentioned the Freud and the Young models and the different way in which they look at dreams. So that was good. Priya says, "Look at Ish. She's laughing at your face when we start to think about spiders." So yeah, Ishpreet has a massive fear for spiders. Love the insect Ish. I adore the jungle. That's fantastic. And there's, in terms of the jungle, I love that you brought that up, Priya. I was watching a video from Sadhguru last week, and he was talking about when he went out in the jungle, and he was talking about how the structured jungle works, and everyone thinks, they want to be like kind of the tiger or the lion or whoever runs the jungle, the king of the jungle. But he says from his observations and spending kind of the amount of time he did in the jungle alone, his observations were the people that actually run the jungle were the insects. and he talks about how he'd observe on a night time how everything was like clockwork, and one insect would start making their noise at kind of 1 a.m., and then a couple of minutes after, the next insects would make that noise, and everything was in like a harmonic tune. And he was just sitting there and listening to it, and how actually the full vibration and everything, the insects play a huge part in the way the universe works and kind of takes through. Sorry, it's a bit off piece there, but it was just really interesting concept to think about when you mentioned you or the jungle there. So it was an interesting thought. So yeah, you learn to love your insects, Ishpreet.
Yeah, I think that's never gonna happen. Not just spiders, any insect, even ladybird.
See, I don't mind that. I mean, I do. The one thing I don't like is mosquitoes. I had a fight with a mosquito the other night and lost. I've got like 5 mosquito bites. But other than that, I'm generally okay with insects. But yeah, let's not get off track. Let's go back onto the subconscious mind. So one of the things I just want to bring in, just for a bit of a discussion too, and I know each one that we're talking about here, we can go deeper. We could probably have a full session on, but just one of the things you mentioned there in terms of kind of tobacco products having these pictures on. It's, do we think that companies are aware of this power of our subconscious mind, and they're constantly putting things in our face and constantly telling us what we want or what we desire, and eventually, because we're subconsciously consuming it and we're constantly around it, we cave in, and we all also automatically think in when it becomes a habit that this is what we want because we've seen it everywhere. What's your thoughts on that? And anybody who's tuned in, what do you think in terms of advertising our subconscious mind?
I think when it comes to advertising, the number one thing that the companies make full use of and like really try to, no, I wouldn't say exploit, but yeah, just like really take advantage of is our senses, and especially um, our vision, like the colors that they use. I think colors are um, the one of the great ways to seep into your subconscious. Like even now, if you think about McDonald's, let's say, the number one thing that comes into our mind is not the burger. The number one thing that comes into your mind is the color yellow and red. And that goes for a lot of brands who do that. For KFC, it's red. And these colors and the way that they select the colors, how vibrant they are, and what they convey in terms of an emotion, I think that is a massive just business in terms of advertising. And an advertiser really has to know a lot about the subconscious to really do something like that, because now over the years, if you release for example, actually, just I was going to say something else, and now I'm just drifting back to coaching minds. If you see, the number one thing that comes into anyone's mind who's been following us and who's been with us is the color blue, the one that we use. I think that's the first thing that pops in your mind, and that's how you seep through someone's subconscious when you talk about companies and advertising. It's the way through colors. I feel that's like the first and foremost thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Colours definitely have energy, and that's what attracts us. And one of the things that I'm kind of trying to get onto here as well is one of my pet peeves. And I don't know if anybody, sure, I've talked to a couple of you who have this. You'd have a conversation about something, and all of a sudden you're getting adverts for it on your phone. I don't know if that's happened to you, but you've talked about something, and all of a sudden you get the advert every week, every week, every week. I don't know if it operates off cookies, but the same thing with cookies. If you Google one word just to get information, you're flooded with loads of information on that through YouTube ads, through Facebook, as you're going through your newsfeed, everywhere. And I think that's them trying to get into your subconscious mind. They've got a little lead of what you want or what you've shown a little bit of interest in, and they're trying to flood your subconscious in order to think that you want that or need that. And yeah, it used to be, it's just crazy the amount of times I've seen that happen on my phone. When I
It
think,
does. And even if you think that you don't need it, or you've probably made the mind to not need it, you start questioning that, do I really need it? Or you'll just start considering if you should actually end up buying it. And many people, I think, they do. I mean, for some of them, it even works.
I've seen people do this. this keeps cropping up all the time. I've talked about it. It must be fit. I have to buy this. and it's
Sign
easily.
of the universe.
Yeah, it's a sign from the. No, it's not a sign from the universe. It's a sign from whoever it is that's trying to sell you this product. But yeah, so I think they're playing on subconscious mind and they're tricking us with everything that they're putting in. But yeah, I've actually seen people say this. It must be a sign. I need to buy this. It's like no, it's not a sign. it's it's very good marketing and advertising. And creepy listening into our phones and conversations is what it is. It's breach of privacy. But yeah, so I just want to share it because it's a bit of a pet peeve. But I honestly think that companies, some of the big ones, are aware of this power of the subconscious, and that's how they get us into their trap. But yeah, I would be interested to see what everybody else thinks on that. I'm just trying to keep it a little bit lighthearted today, as well as we've got some deep topics, but also keep it a bit lighthearted too, and have a bit of fun with it today. So what we got here? So Sam has said, sorry, Sam, Paula has said Sadhguru is here in the USA and Frank has been following him. That's absolutely amazing. Sadhguru is a great inspiration of mine too. He's absolutely fantastic. I'm sure, I don't know, Ishpreet, you follow Sadhguru a lot. I've done his inner engineering course, which is absolutely fantastic. And you can finish the course in the USA and India and a few other places too. Go to that face-to-face event, but he's fantastic. So if you get a chance to see him, if there's an event going, then I would definitely recommend. He's just so full of wisdom, and I love his sense of humour as well. How he brings in kind of lightheartedness and the way he laughs at himself as well and chuckles. I think that's quite funny. He's a good guy. Frank says, I'm with you, Ishpreet. Spiders creep me out, even though I try to like them because they are beneficial to the ecosystem. You're not alone, Ishpreet. You're not alone.
I'm with you. Yeah, totally.
I've completely changed my mindset. I didn't used to fear of them. I didn't used to be scared of them. I just didn't used to like them. So when I was younger, I used to kill them. I know it's a bad thing. I hold my hand up. I used to kill them. I used to get a shoe and whack them, and because I just didn't like them. So, but I changed my ways and I actually capture them in a glass now and I release them outside. I changed my ways. I moved from fixed mindset to growth mindset. Paul says companies definitely use focus groups to gauge who will buy or not buy their products. Definitely, definitely. Even subliminal messages. Yeah, definitely, Paula. Thank you for sharing that. We're always being watched, abs, and heard with smart TV and abs phones. Yeah, you do talk a lot about abs. And it shows up on your phone. Yeah. Oh, sorry, and Priya says she sees that a lot. Sam says the other problem is that consumerism has been linked with success. The more we have and purchase, the more successful we are. Companies take advantage of this as well. They do. And I think there's a lot of people that take advantage of this. When you start to understand that the subconscious controls a lot of what people do and how they behave, so it's kind of preying on the vulnerable, really, in a sense. But it shows the importance of how we need to. We talked about is which one's more powerful, the subconscious or the conscious. Subconscious is the most powerful, but the most important for me is the consciousness. We need to become aware of this and what's happening and what's going on, because then that can help us. Sam, as you mentioned earlier on, it allows us to have that power of choice and that control. We can control what we see, what we do, and just having that awareness that the subconscious controls us on, we can start to train it the way we want to train it and unlearn and relearn what we need to grow. Sam also says that's why it's so important to ask ourselves whether something adds value or lives before purchasing it. But read that again, sorry. I'll let you go, Ishpreet. You can read this one.
You're on a roll today, Paul.
Yeah, man. My tongue is.
Okay, Sam says that's why it's so important to ask ourselves whether something adds value to our lives before purchasing it. Yeah, I think that's what we don't realize, I feel, and that's what leads to decluttering our houses, our minds. And this is actually one point that I wanted to put forward even when we were talking about the environment, and how when um in a situation where a person isn't feeling their best in terms of their mental health, just decluttering your existing space helps so much. I mean, for me also, if I just have to put myself in a better mood, what I try to do is not fix myself in that moment. I try to fix my environment by, for example, making my bed, or just like cleaning the wardrobe, or doing something that makes me feel that I'm a little back in order or a little back in control. I mean, that happens, I think, with all of us. It's very therapeutic when you start to clean things around you or just put them in back in order, because that sends your subconscious a signal that, okay, like you're a little back on track now. Your life looks a little back in place and you have things in order. You are back in control of your life. That just gives you that subconscious feeling that you are back in control. And again, that has everything to do with decluttering and fixing your environment and things like that. So yeah, I feel it's super important. We as consumers just keep on consuming without realizing it, keep on hoarding. Um, and definitely companies make the most advantage out of it.
Definitely, and I like that you raised that point. It's such an important point with the environment, and then just changing a few things to get yourselves back in order to control it. And just one tip from me, environment, I think, was the key to helping me with my depression, get me out of depression. So if you don't, you mentioned mental health, Ishpreet. If you do know anyone that's suffering, that's struggling, the best thing you can do, and I know we're limited given the world's current situation right now, but the best thing that you can do for somebody is, we talk about listening and holding that space, but just making sure you take them out the space they're currently in. Try your best to just get them out the space they're currently in and have that conversation in a different environment. So don't have it at home. If it's a family member that you live with, don't have that in the house, don't have it at home. Take them out for a walk, take them, sit on a park bench somewhere, have a coffee, obviously make sure it's somewhere private so they can open up. But generally just taking them out, getting onto the fresh air, just that change of environment and having that conversation, it's so powerful. And that's a bit off piece again with the subconscious mind, but it's just something that really worked for me in terms of my depression, just getting out of that environment and just having that space it just gives us that space we need to kind of clear our minds to some extent. So
I think it snaps you out of, sorry, I was just saying that it also like snaps you out of that momentum and the pattern that you're in. And that's also why, and it works vice versa as well. Like in therapy, a lot of times people prefer that you are in a familiar environment, and you have that session in a place that you are like you feel safe around, your house or something, because again, subconsciously you feel safe there. And yeah, so it like works both ways, like you
yeah,
just said.
so that works more for anxiety. So if you're helping someone who's suffering from anxiety, then their fear of going out, having some of that conversation where they're familiar with is really beneficial. But depression, if you're really in a depressive place, because remember, you can have depression and anxiety, and you can suffer from both, but they can't both happen at the same time. It's like a wave, so you'll go up and down through. You feel depressed, and you feel anxious. You feel depressed, anxious. You can never feel depressed and anxious. What's with my voice today and my mouth? It's not going right, but yeah. So you can never be depressed and anxious at exactly the same moment in time, because it's when we jump from our imagination to our memory, and we go up and down on spirals. So just going back to a couple of the comments, but thank you for mentioning that, Ishpreet, that was good. So if you've got any questions, we're going to bring this to a bit of a close, so it's not a chance to ask any questions or put any thoughts or comments that you've got in today. But just going back to the comments, Frank has said, Paula follows Australian firefighters, and now when she types in the letter A, her phone autocorrect puts in abs. The power of the subconscious mind in advertising. It's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Cool. Paula agrees with that. So true, hopes. But you bought my pillowcases. It's in Frank's phone now as well, isn't it? She's typed in Frank's phones every time Frank types A, it brings up Australian firefighters for him. It's Fantastic. Thank you, Priya, for that really kind message. Thank you for sharing yours too, and for being here today, and everybody who's really tuned in. Sam, Paula, Frank, Prashani, Priya, we're really grateful for you being here and for interacting. We really appreciate you guys. Frank says, great insight, Paul, especially during this time. It's good to watch out for each other, give the person a change of scenery and let them talk. Definitely, Frank. Definitely. Thank you for capturing that. It's so important. It really is. Fantastic. So does anybody have any questions, thoughts, anything they want to add today before we kind of bring this to a close? Ishpreet, is there anything you want to add? Any last words or?
No, like I just said in the beginning, I think this was one of my favorite topics to talk about. So I enjoyed it a lot. And thanks everyone for chipping in today, contributing all of your ideas, all of your wisdom. And yeah, looking forward to many more interesting conversations with all of you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you, Ishpreet. And thank you for being here and sharing your experiences, your wisdom, and your energy today. Really, really appreciate you stepping forward for another live. So thank you, Ishpreet. The last thing I just want to mention, if you're really interested in the power of the subconscious mind and it's a theme that you've really enjoyed learning about, I think a few of us have mentioned it. Ishpreet, I know you mentioned it. I mentioned it in my session. There's a book by Joseph Murphy. So Joseph Murphy is the author, and it's called The Power of the Subconscious Mind. So if you are interested, it's a good read. We could, even if people are interested, we could add that as a possible topic to vote for our book club as well. So if people like that, put it in the book club. If somebody wants to put it in the book club circle, if you really enjoy the topic, then we can add that as a book to vote on for next session. But I'm going to type it in here. Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And like I said, if you want us to add that as an option for our book club, we can do. But if someone wants to propose it and put it forward in the book circle, then please do, and then we'll add that to the list of options. Cool. It looks like there's no questions coming in, Ishpreet. So we'll bring this to a bit of a close. I just want to say thanks again to everybody who's tuned in, for being here every week, for joining us on the webinars on Saturdays, for being part of book club sessions, for being part of the community, for engaging every day with the stuff that we put out there. We appreciate and value each and every single one of you. And I just love seeing how much you're coming together, how much you've grown, and the conversations that we're having. It's absolutely fantastic. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have an absolutely amazing week ahead, and I will be connecting with you all very, very soon. And thank you again.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.